It happened so fast, no one had time to breathe. One moment, the churchyard was filled with soft hymns and murmured amens. The next, a sharp crack echoed through the air. A man had stepped out of the crowd, eyes burning with rage, and struck the pastor right across the face. The sound of that slap seemed to hang in the silence that followed, heavy and unreal. Children froze, women gasped, and the pastor just stood there, one hand pressed against his cheek, his eyes calm, almost sorrowful. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're rewatching from. I love knowing who is listening. No one could understand what had just happened. The man, a stranger to most, stood trembling, his chest heaving, as if fighting to hold back years of anger. His name was Aaron Blake, and though his clothes were neat, his life was falling apart inside. He had lost his wife only a month ago, a quiet woman who used to sit in the back pew every Sunday. And in his heart, Aaron blamed the man he had just hit, Pastor Michael. Michael had been there when she was sick. He'd prayed over her, visited her, told Aaron to have faith. But faith hadn't saved her. When the pastor walked up that Sunday morning talking about forgiveness and grace, something inside Aaron had snapped. The congregation waited for the pastor's reaction or rebuke, maybe even a call for the police. But none came. Instead, Pastor Michael slowly lowered his hand and looked straight into Aaron's eyes. His voice, when it came, was quiet, steady. "Aaron," he said, "I know your pain is deep, but why carry it alone?" The words stunned the crowd. No anger, no defense, just compassion. And that made it harder for Aaron to breathe. He wanted to scream, to accuse, to make someone feel what he felt. But Michael's calm only made his rage feel small, almost childish. The pastor stepped closer, ignoring the murmurs rising around them. "You can hit me again if it helps," he said softly, "but it won't bring her back. It won't bring you peace." The air grew thick. Even the birds on the wire above seemed to go silent. Aaron's hand trembled, half-raised, but he couldn't move it. The crowd watched, caught between judgment and awe. A woman whispered, "He's lost his mind," but another whispered back, "Or maybe he's found something we don't understand." Aaron's eyes filled with tears he didn't mean to show. "You told me she'd get better," he said, voice breaking. "Yes. You said God had a plan." Pastor Michael nodded, pain flickering in his own gaze. "I did, and I still believe that. But sometimes his plans break us before they heal us." The words fell heavy, like a confession. Michael looked down then, his fingers tracing the wooden edge of the pulpit beside him. "When I lost my daughter," he continued quietly, "I wanted to burn this church down. I blamed everyone, even God. But pain isn't punishment, Aaron. It's the place where grace begins." The confession hit the crowd like a wave. Most of them had never heard the pastor speak of his own loss. Aaron's anger began to crumble, piece by piece, replaced by something raw, guilt, sorrow, exhaustion. He fell to his knees before the pastor, sobbing into his hands. The crowd, unsure whether to watch or look away, shifted in restless silence. Pastor Michael knelt too, placing a hand gently on the man's shoulder. "You are not alone," he said again, barely above a whisper. A moment passed, then another. Slowly others began to move. One woman stepped forward. She had lost her son years ago and placed her hand on Aaron's back. Then another joined. Within seconds, half the congregation was kneeling, a living circle of compassion around the man who had struck their pastor. In that stillness, the churchyard no longer felt like a place of judgment. It felt like healing. When the sun began to dip behind the stained glass windows, Aaron sat on the church steps, his eyes red, but his heart strangely lighter. Pastor Michael sat beside him, silent at first. Then he said quietly, "You don't owe me an apology. You owe yourself forgiveness." Aaron nodded, voice barely steady. "I don't know if I can." "You will," the pastor said. "In time, just don't walk away from grace before it finds you." The next Sunday, Aaron returned, this time sitting in the very front row. His face was still tired, but there was a peace in his posture. When the pastor began the sermon, he didn't mention the slap, only said, "If you've come here with a wound, you're in the right place. Even wounds can become doors." The entire congregation stood at the end, not in applause, but in reverent silence. The same silence that had once followed the slap. Now transformed, it wasn't shock anymore. It was awe. And for the first time since his wife's passing, Aaron smiled. Not because his pain was gone, but because he finally knew it could mean something. Because grace isn't weakness. It's strength restrained by love. Because forgiveness doesn't excuse, it heals. Because kindness doesn't vanish. It waits, and it finds its way back. And as the sunlight filtered through the colored glass, painting the room in quiet gold, the same hands that once trembled in anger now held peace. Fragile, but real.
Ow.
So what do you think you would have done in Aaron's place? Let me know in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, make sure to subscribe, because sometimes the smallest act of grace changes everything. You said. Mujia's story caught title. Description are 10 tags. Bejo Chat GPT said. Title, Man slaps. Pastor in public, what the pastor did next left everyone silent. Description, when anger and grief collide in front of a church, a single slap changes everything. The heartbroken man blames his pastor for his wife's death, but instead of retaliation, the pastor's reaction leaves the entire crowd speechless. This powerful story of forgiveness, pain, and unexpected grace reminds us that kindness isn't weakness. It's strength guided by love. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more true life stories that inspire and heal hearts.